Hello, listeners. This is Kat. Welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfic. This will be the reading of a fic entitled Keep Your Friends Close, As for Your Enemies. Here's the summary. Class A now has to undergo the Urban Warfare Unit, splitting the class into heroes and villains. Both sides alike will have to make sacrifices, and trust is a fragile, precious resource. Still, Izuku has Hatsume by his side, and he will not lose, no matter how many times he has to shatter, whatever it takes. This fic is 7 chapters with 23,000 words. Hope you all enjoy. Chapter 1. Opening Act. 17 days until deadline, 9:36 a.m., 33 degrees Celsius. Izuku watched as Principal Nezu stepped up to the podium, scanning for the meaning behind the surprise assembly that had been called for the second years. The sun beat down on them, the heat stagnating among the students standing to attention, but if Nezu noticed, he paid no mind, simply straightening his cuffs. "Hello, students, it's Principal Nezu." Right, so this was an address specifically from Nezu, rather than a whole thing. Izuku and Nezu both ignored the murmurs of tired dismay that spread amongst the students, whose shoulders slumped further. "I'm sure you've been wondering what the assessment for this term is. It's a very exciting unit, so I'll get right to it." Oh, so this was the exam. Izuku shifted slightly, his head switching gears from, "Oh no, there's another villain threat," to, "Oh no, Nezu's excited by something." This was UA, so it'd have to be some kind of twist, like the zero-pointer in the entrance exam, and this time, he was going to be ready. A slight breeze gave the crowd a spot of relief, but the stifling heat returned seconds later. "Sadly, each class has to have the exam separately due to coordination issues. The assessment consists of 2 teams, the heroes and the villains. You have 2 weeks to prepare, and the exam runs for 3 days. A wave of disquiet washed through the students. 3 days. Izuku would assume it would be some kind of survival exam, but that wouldn't make sense. Survival skills were next year, and not enough heroes took up positions in remote areas for it to be a priority for a year-wide exam. A small, selected course, sure. The whole school, less likely. From the way Nezu explained it, this would be a long-term battle simulation, probably including stakeouts. That would certainly fit the 2 weeks to prepare thing. Nezu continued. "Each team has a leader, selected by us teachers. It is their job to recruit members for either side. The leaders themselves cannot switch teams, or they will immediately earn a failing grade. If you're on the losing team, you will lose 25% of your grade, but a good enough performance will still constitute a pass. There are 10 objectives for the villains to complete. If they successfully complete 5, the villains win. If they fail, or are all captured by the heroes win." This is beginning to sound like a bad math question. There are 20 students in 2 groups. One group doesn't want to be in their group, because they fear that associating with fictional villains would ruin their reputation and/or morals. How long would it take a 3-day exam with a 2-week planning time to collapse into chaos? "Students outside of the hero course are permitted to join, but they must register their involvement with their teacher and me. If their student is judged to have performed well, they will get extra credit." Ah, Izuku was going to have to see Hatsume after this, wasn't he? "For the next 2 weeks, all lessons in the heroics class will be dedicated to planning this task. For the rest of the period, you may begin building your teams. First, for the heroes." Everyone stood up straighter, despite the sun beating down on them and the sweat rolling down their backs, hoping for their name to be called. "The hero keystone is Katsuki Bakugo." Izuku honestly wished he could be surprised. Bakugo practically strutted up to the stage, glaring at anyone who so much as looked at him wrong. His sleeves were rolled up to combat the heat as he walked, with a familiar hunch to his shoulders. Not an aggressive hunch, like usual, but ego. Pride. Yup, he's the hero leader. Part of Izuku knew what was going to happen next, even before Nezu announced it. It was always about duality, with him and Kachan, cut from the same cloth, sure, but dyed and bleached and sewn into different structures. Kachan was strong, Izuku was weak. Kachan was explosive, Izuku was mild. Kachan was a hero, and Izuku was. "And for the villains, the ringleader is Izuku Midoriya." The sun beat down on Izuku even harder, as Izuku passed students who looked at him with such pity. They knew people wouldn't let themselves be recruited to his side. They knew he would lose. Well, they thought he would lose. Izuku was going to be a hero, whatever it took. Izuku reached the stage. "With that, the planning stage of UA Urban Warfare Unit begins." 17 days until deadline, 9:39 a.m., 33 degrees Celsius. "Hatsume." Izuku intercepted the inventor before she was pulled, along with the rest of the crowd, toward Bakugo. "My team's going to need a lot of support, including firepower. Could you please join my team?" He was desperate, but it didn't matter. Quick to the point. Get the offer out there. Hatsume paused. How do I know I shouldn't go to the heroes? Easy. Kachan's their leader. He doesn't care about support items, just quirks and brute strength. There's not going to be any interesting projects, or even a promise of projects at all. I doubt he'll even think of support items as a viable option until he absolutely has to. Me, however. Izuku shifted his weight. I need your inventions. I'm going to ask for them. I'm going to use them, besides. He leaned in slightly. Everyone's expecting the heroes to win. If the villains win, using your inventions? That's a lot of publicity. Please, please, please say yes. I've judged this right, haven't I? You're the best in the support course, and you're the only one unbiased enough to accept being with the villain team. If you won't join me, then... Hatsume had brightened, grinning. And if there's a lot of publicity, then more people will buy my babies. Izuku noticed some people throwing concerned glances at them after that remark, but he let it slide, nodding instead. Of course. So, are you in? Of course. Hatsume pulled out a screwdriver and a twisted lump of metal and wiring. What do you need? I need recruits first. Then I should be able to get you to make support items for them. For myself, however, I'd need to make a list. Can I get back to you by the end of the day? I'll swing by in last period with anyone I can find. Sure, 10 million. Izuku watched Hatsume go, a bounce in her step. Now for the hard part. Izuku scanned the crowd for any candidates. He could pick someone up from general studies. They'd be more likely to join him for a chance to be seen with the hero course, but no, they wouldn't associate with villains, even fake ones. Being with the hero course wouldn't count if they were only picked out of desperation, wouldn't pander to their pride. Besides, that would feel like begging, and Izuku was not going to beg. Whether he won or lost, he would keep the last shred of dignity he had left. Then he caught sight of familiar purple hair, and realized that maybe he wouldn't need to find a bunch of Gen Ed students after all. The person he really wanted on his team was hanging around the edges of the Bakugo crowd, seemingly deciding to distance himself as much as possible. Hitoshi Shinso. He was perfect, strong, smart, a capable fighter. It would be unlike Kachan's usual MO to pay him any attention, since transferring to 1A after the sports festival, gleefully kicking Mineta out of the class, he'd been struggling to prove himself. Although it was more imagined pressure than anything, he'd already had the class's respect. He just didn't realize it yet. Someone in the middle of the group said something, and the crowd dispersed across the field, as if whatever conversation they were all having was over. Izuku tucked that away for later, already picking apart the implications. Instead of mourning it, however, Izuku took advantage of it, walking straight up to Shinso. Hey, I'm looking for recruits, obviously. I know you probably don't want to be on the villain team, but... I'm in. Izuku jerked in surprise. Really? His eyebrows drew in together. And before you make any conclusions, I'm not asking you because I think that you do well on this team, that it's specifically mirroring villains. I'm asking you because I think my style of planning... I'm sure. I need to prove myself to the class, and winning on unexpected terms would do that. He crossed his arms. I only got in at the sports festival. I don't have the reputation yet. Izuku hesitated. Not to be counterproductive, but that's kind of the reason that you need to be careful when choosing. If you're worried people will see you as a villain, then why are you joining the villain team? Joining the hero team would be even better for building teamwork. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You need recruits. I'm a recruit. Shinso shook his head. This is an exam, not real life. I'll be fine. Izuku nodded hesitantly. Okay, in that case, I'm glad to have you. He scanned the remaining groups of people, noting that a few people kept on giving him almost considering looks. I'm meeting up with Hatsume during last period today, so if you'd go to the sport labs then, that'd be great. Until then, just look for more recruits. Shinso nodded. On it. 17 days until deadline. 2:34 p.m. 33 degrees Celsius. By last period, Izuku had managed to find 6 people, including Shinso, but not including Hatsume, and he was starting to wonder if it was overkill. He'd understood a few people switching over to villainy, heck, even wanted it, but he privately wondered if it was too many. At most, he had expected 3 or 4, but this... Shinso, Shoji, Jiro, Tokiyami, Hagakure, Yayorozu. He could see a plan coming together, tactics and combination surfacing, swimming up through and crawling out of his subconscious. Things he had noticed, privately, in class, but had never voiced aloud or even acknowledged. He could do so many things with this group. He let the plan settle as he looked them all over before pulling out a new notebook. Shinso, how's your voice changer? Shinso startled, not expecting the question. It's... fine. Why? Do you think we could make it filter out gas, too? Shinso paused. If you can do that, that would be great, thanks. Shinso did a double take. Hold on, why do we need to make it filter out gas? Izuku ignored him, jotting down some notes. Okay, then. Thanks to an Extra briefing given to me between classes. I now have a bit more information on the logistics of things. In order to accommodate for weapons like guns, paintball guns will serve to kill a target if necessary. I plan to abuse this rule as much as possible. Therefore, Hatsume... Yes? Hatsume was practically vibrating with excitement. Shinzo and Tokiyami can have mostly normal paintball guns. I can look over the designs, check that it's all okay, but other than that, do what you want. Shoji could have a more heavy-duty one, or a bunch of small ones, whichever you think is best. Jiro, since she'd be more like the scout of the group, should have something probably resembling a sniper. I don't know if you can even create an invisible gun, but if you can, that'd be great for Hagekure. If not, just make something small. Yayorozu could have something small for backup, but she should be able to make other weapons if things go south. Actually, that reminds me. Izuku turned to Yayorozu, who looked like she was struggling to keep up. Do you know how to make many inventions? By inventions, you mean more complicated creations. For example, you made a motorbike during the quirk assessment test. Do you think you could make more stuff like that? Yayorozu blinked. I don't know many of those formulas. I didn't think of it like that. That's okay, but you might need to start thinking of ideas. Yayorozu, you can make guns, grenades, bombs, flashbangs, tasers, liquid fire. Hold on, liquid fire? Izuku stopped. Diethyl zinc. After receiving 6 blank stares and 1 crazed grin, courtesy of Hatsume, he elaborated. It combusts upon contact with the air. Oh. What I'm saying is, if you can't memorize all those formulas and blueprints in 2 weeks, you might want to have some kind of encyclopedia. I'd say a fireproof book, but that'd be too heavy. I'm not entirely sure I like the idea of it being electronic with Kaminari against us, but by building a small tablet or something like that, you could store so many blueprints. That's genius. I'm making this baby tonight. Izuku grinned. Oh, Hatsume, we're coming up with a lot more ideas today. So, that's Shinso's voice changer, Yayorozu's book. Ah, Izuku turned to Jiro. Do you think that you could use some kind of directional speaker, like the kind that Present Mike has? It might help to add an offensive aspect to your fighting. Jiro shrugged, seemingly lost. Sure. Izuku scanned the group again, crossing a few things off the list in his notebook, before he glanced at Hagekure. I'll want the same design for all the costumes. One that hides our identity so we can switch without the heroes knowing. Otherwise, it would be beneficial for Hagekure's to be able to turn invisible. Do you think that we can weave her DNA into it, but somehow make it trigger in an on-off fashion? Also, we need to address the whole Hagekure's costume issue. Hatsume considered it. Maybe. I'd need some time to work it out, but I'm sure I'd think of something eventually. Grinning, Hatsume had grabbed her toolbox. Is that all for now? I want to get started on these babies. Izuku snorted, shaking his head. I'll have to make the designs for the costumes, but for now, go ahead. I'm actually trying to stick with a kind of circus theme, since they're all calling me the ringmaster and all, but it still needs to be swappable between people so we can conceal our identities for as long as possible. He shrugged. I think I'll base everything off of a circus, but the costumes would give too much away. With any luck, it'll throw the other team off. Well, you do that. I'll need another few days, but I should at least be able to get your guns to you by Wednesday. Izuku clapped his hands together. That sounds great. Thanks, Hatsume. He turned to the others, a small, almost devious smirk on his face. Until then, I guess it's just training. 15 days until deadline, 2:26 p.m., 31 degrees Celsius. Izuku and Hatsume watched as the others ran their last lap on the training field before they began their weapons training. They'd normally join in, but Izuku had excused himself to talk to her a few moments ago. Do you think this is the right thing to do? Izuku watched the 6 recruits sweat and struggle closer to the finish. I don't think there is a right thing, Hatsume. The game is rigged against us, even more than I had initially realized, and I don't think either of us is ready to lose yet. I know, I know, Hatsume. I know. Izuku watched as Yayorozu cleared the finish line. I just don't think we really have a choice. 15 days until deadline, 2:28 p.m., 31 degrees Celsius. So, how do we use these? Hatsume grinned. That's the best part. You have to load the cartridges, of course, like this. Hatsume snapped a paint cartridge into place with an almost inaudible click. And you have to load it for the first shot. Hatsume did so, cocking back the top of the gun. But after that, it's all point and shoot. Hatsume, without looking, shot a paintball at one of the wooden plyboards Izuku had set up. It hit a bit left of the central target. Izuku took a mental note of her marksmanship. Right. Shinso, Tokiyami, and Dark Shadow, grab one of those guns. Jiro, you take the sniper. Hagekure and Yayorozu, you take the handguns. As everyone did as Izuku commanded, he grabbed a regular paint gun. These are all paint guns, so we don't have to be as concerned with safety, but we still need to keep it in mind. Treat them like they're loaded at all times. Don't point them at people unless you plan to shoot, and for goodness sake, don't shoot someone in the eyes. They all nodded. Good. Izuku trusted them to be sensible. If he'd had Kaminari or Zero in his group, he would probably be more cautious, but this crew was more thoughtful. Izuku just didn't want one of the heroes to pull one of those on him in the exam. He'd had Hatsume build in a few fail-safes, but other than that, he'd have to be careful. He couldn't win this on his own. He'd have to play the other team like a fiddle, and in order to do that, they'd have to think that they were playing him. Of course, it'd be bad if the other team got their hands on these, so keep your eyes on them. Hatsume's installed a tracker into them, but it'll be switched off when the exam starts to prevent any kind of hacking to get our locations. Isn't that a bit unlike Bakugo? Hagakure asked. He doesn't seem like the kind to skirt around a physical task. Izuku sighed. I'm only going to say this once. He made eye contact with every group member, his eyes lingering slightly on Hatsume before continuing. People think Kacchan's all brawn, no brains. They're wrong. All throughout our childhood, he'd been encouraged to be explosive and flashy and strong. That doesn't change the fact that he can be whip-smart when he needs to be. With a cunning streak a mile wide to match, he blasts his way through every obstacle because he can, and he sees massive feats of intelligence as a waste of energy, but just because he doesn't show intricate skill doesn't mean he can't. His mind is more dangerous than people give him credit for, and he has the brutality to follow through. Don't underestimate that. Shinzo frowned. But why would he choose now to be smart? Because. The corner of Izuku's lip curled into a wry smile. He's facing me. He knows that whatever's happening, I'm going to be using my head for once, and he thinks that if he can catch me off guard, he'll have me. Thanks to previous stunts I've pulled, he's well aware of the fact that I could cause chaos if I go ballistic. At a guess, I'd say he wants me to feel comfortable enough to play the long game so I don't cause him trouble. A quick, brutal win, Yayorozu said, realization dawning on her face. An undeniable one, Izuku corrected, nodding. A win that I won't let him have. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 1 of Keep Your Friends Close. As for your enemies, Chapter 2 will be next. Hope you guys are enjoying this so far, and as always, thank you so much for listening.